Welcome back to another episode of Speculative Dude Presents. I'm your host, Speculative Dude. Now, this week, as I mentioned, we're taking a look at Transformers 4 Age of Extinction. And, well, to be perfectly honest, I liked it. Now, am I saying it's an awesome, greatest, most epic film ever? No. But I definitely liked it better than the others in the franchise. I've heard a lot of people complaining about it, and I really don't get it, because these are the same people that are complaining that the first three movies had too much immature, dumb humor. And this one does away with almost all of that, and now they're complaining about, it's like, you know what, you just can't please some people. That honestly has always bothered me. If they don't find one thing, it's like with Fast and the Furious, if you complain about one thing, they changed, they changed the name. Well, if they had changed the name, they would have been complaining about something else. So, same things in there. But honestly, as I said, I enjoyed it. It had a little bit of a edgier story on it, if you will. After the events of the last movie, and pretty much the destruction of a good chunk of Chicago, the Transformers are now being hunted down. Allegedly, only the Decepticons are being hunted down, when you find out in reality it's obviously the Autobots who are primarily being targeted. And that's, of course there's, the head, Kelsey Grammer plays the head of the CIA, who's, looking to retire, and he's aided by Stanley Tucci, who is a scientist who's been working on, understanding Transformers and basically building some of his own. And he says, if you get me enough raw materials, well, they're getting the raw materials by destroying the other Transformers. Very interestingly enough, a good chunk of the movie follows basically the Transformers finding out who it is that's killing them off, or the Autobots finding out who's killing them off. Interesting enough, the only returning Autobots are actually Optimus Prime and Bumblebee. Although you do see Ratchet briefly in the opening scene before he's destroyed as well. Still don't understand why they're focusing so much on Bumblebee. Didn't really like the character in the in the old animated series. Still don't like him. And he's still doing that thing of only speaking in clips from movie quotes. And unfortunately, this one is the worst because you can't understand what he's saying half the time. So it's as I said, most of the immature humor is gone. It takes on a much more serious tone. Again, the entire original cast is gone. Replaced by Mark Wahlberg and company. For me, Mark Wahlberg has always kind of been hit or miss as an actor. Sometimes he's really good, other times it's like, okay. And granted, that may depend on what movie he's in as well. For example, The Happening. I think pretty much anybody can laugh at that one. Or, the remake of Planet of the Apes. It's like, okay, really? But, there's been plenty of movies that he has been pretty good in. So, it's not too bad. He does a good job. Though he really, even though everyone knows he's old enough to be the father of the hero who's supposed to be playing his daughter, because he's aged so well, he doesn't really look like he's old enough to be her father. But he's got a daughter. He's living in Texas now. He's an inventor. He tries to do things in his garage. He's got his little farm there. Of course, as per stereotype, there's a link. The farm is up, for sale. They're behind on payments, etc. All that usual cheesy stuff. And he gets called. He basically, to make money, he'll go in, buy stuff from buildings that are being torn down, and then, sell it on his own. He goes in and happens to come across an old theater, although I would like to know how this got in there, an old semi-truck, which you, of course, find out in the trailers is Optimus Prime. No surprise there. Let's see, of course, the government comes hunting. They're rescued whether it's intentional or inadvertently, by his daughter's boyfriend, who now the thing about Mr. Wahlberg is that his character as a father is he's a little bit overprotective. His daughter's 17. He doesn't want her to doesn't want her to date a guy until after she graduates high school. But interesting enough, as an overprotective father, he's not the stereotype overprotective father. He hits that one stereotype, and that's about it, really. Usually the stereotypical father comes off as kind of a jerk. Here he doesn't. So it does. In fact, actually, the boyfriend comes off as a much bigger jerk when, they start discussing, their relationship, and apparently they've been going out for quite a while, And throughout the movie, he says little lines, every once in a while that's like, a real dad probably would have knocked your block off for that. He's, like I said, he's not, honestly, the boyfriend's not a likable character, and he really doesn't contribute very much to the story either. Other than, he shows up and kind of saves them at the beginning of the movie, but other than that, really doesn't do a whole lot. It's like, okay, he's there for the rest of the movie, and he's an extra person to talk, that's about it. Let's see. As the Transformers find out why they're being hunted, the Autobots find out why they're being hunted, they actually go and confront Stanley Tucci's character, and actually assault the building, which is kind of impressive and almost not head-scratching, but almost scary in a way, because it's like, okay, these guys just kind of came out of nowhere, and, he threatens, he threatens him into stopping and leaving, and then, Optimus Prime having a moment of, it's like, all right, we really, this isn't what we should be doing, this is not what we're supposed to be doing. They leave, but interestingly enough, when they leave, it's you understand up to this point why Optimus Prime is so angry, because the Autobots are literally being hunted down and killed when they were told that they were going to be allowed to stay and live in peace. It's there may be some social commentary in there, I'm not gonna lie, but if it is, it's not as heavy-handed as some other movies have put it. So that's make of that what you will. When they find out that Stanley Tucci's character has gotten his head on got his hands on Megatron's head, and has been downloading information about all the Transformers, understanding considering they're mechanical, it's hard to use the word biological, but they're, if you understand what I'm saying here, it's, trying to understand the mechanics of their systems. He at one point he says, we mapped your genome. How accurate that is any real scientist's guess, but this is movie science, so we don't have to take it too seriously. But if you look at it from one perspective, it's not too surprising. He tries to build his own, many different units of Transformers of his own making. It's like, okay, we can replicate this. We got this metal now. We can, they've been essentially, when they've been killing a Transformer, they've been stripping its metal and basically reforming it for their own purposes. When they do that, he's been trying to build. Interesting enough, apparently his character is a big fan of Optimus Prime, and he keeps wanting to build one similar to Optimus Prime. Yet, supposedly every time it reformats itself, it looks more like Megatron. And he even says that. He says, "So I based this off of Optimus Prime. Why does it keep coming out looking like?" Well, it's because apparently all the functions, the mental functions of Megatron that they've been downloading, have been seeping into this robot, this new robot, which of course they call Galvatron. Which anybody who knows, I found it hilarious when somebody made a complaint on another one. It's like, why'd they bring back Megatron again? It's like, apparently you don't know the original story. In the original story, that's what happened. Megatron was repurposed by Unicron to be Galvatron, and continued the story as a villain. That's all they did, was they just made a human repurpose him this time instead. So, At the end, it was kind of amusing at the end to get Stanley Tucci's character on their side, and they try to explain what's going on because they send the new repurposed Transformers after Optimus Prime and the other Autobots, and they notice for moments of time Galvatron is not completely under their control, and which of course you find out later it's like he really never was, but he just let them think it. Essentially, so he could have them build him his own, new army of Decepticons. Not too bad a plan. For once it shows that Megatron is a thoughtful, tactical leader as a Decepticon, which I think has been missing, obviously, in the last couple of movies. He's just been all about brute force for the most part. So here, I said, very different. But also, once they figure out that Megatron, or I should say Galvatron, is in control, Mark Wahlberg, calls up Stanley Tucci and says, it's interesting because he appeals to his sense as another inventor. It's like, this is not what you created. This is not, help us, blah, 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 blah. I do have to admit his U-turn does seem a little bit too quick, in my opinion, because it doesn't come out of nowhere, but it's like, wow, he believed him a little too easily. Now, maybe he was just willing to believe him because he saw the little bits of time when, for example, when they thought they were in control and they clearly weren't. Maybe he saw those a little bit better, but it's just, I don't know. Like I said, I thought it was a little too quick for me personally. Of course, they end up moving from their facility in Chicago to their facility. Interesting enough, they say first they say Beijing, then they say Guangzhou, China. It's like, well, okay, those aren't anywhere near each other, but it's like, okay, whatever, we're gonna do that. I've been to China before, so I get to see. It's like, oh, hey, I know that place. Ooh, hey, I know that place. Ooh, cool. It's kind of interesting, but overall, it was very. The last part of the movie was a good fight. You do get Mark Wahlberg's being chased all over by the CIA. Partially because Kelsey Grammer's character doesn't want him to expose what he's done, because he's made underhand deals with a Decepticon from who's named Lockdown, who's been helping them hunt the Autobots. Specifically because Lockdown is looking for Optimus Prime, because the only reason he says he's been looking for Optimus Prime is the creators want him back. Well, in the original Transformers, the creators of both the Decepticons and the Autobots were the Quintessons. They're hinted at here, though never actually said, and the name is also never said. So, towards the end of the movie, now that Stanley Tucci's character is in his manufacturing facility, they've been manufacturing their own Transformers, Galvatron basically comes in, hardwires everything so that they obey him. So there's Galvatron's new army of Decepticons. So the Autobots know we've got to get in there, and Optimus Prime says we need a new army, because at this point they're down to like 5 Autobots. So Optimus Prime at this point has been captured and is on board Lockdown's ship with some other Transformers, and you find out that they show this early on. Really, there's no point in showing this scene at the beginning of the movie other than to set up the intro of the Dinobots, and that is the Quintessons coming down and planting this seed, which essentially spreads out and creates this type of metal which is used in the making of the Transformers. And in some cases, it will actually encase and repurpose organic life to be a Transformer, which is essentially what happened with the Dinobots. Again, like I said, it's an opening scene that sets up this seed, which is what Lockdown promises the CIA director so they can build these Transformers, because the CIA director wants to work with Stanley Tucci to create more of these. Therefore, Stanley's company makes money, Kelsey Grammer, makes money because he's invested in the company, etc. You know, so I would say long story short, but the movie is 2.5 hours, over 2.5 hours long. So it's like, well, there goes that idea. Though I will say this, I thought the pacing was actually decent. Maybe not awesome, but much better than the other movies. At the end, I said Optimus Prime is on the ship. It says, they're down to 5 Autobots. He says we need a new army. So he basically lets the Dinobots go. He kind of has it out with Grimlock at one point, which makes sense because in the original, Grimlock didn't want to work for Optimus Prime. He wanted to be his own independent. It's like the Dinobots are in my control, and that's kind of the way he was. As he was more than a little resentful of working for Optimus Prime. But here, basically, Dinobots don't actually speak at all. They just roar and all that stuff. But he says basically, work with me, and and you're free. If you help me fight the Decepticons, and you guys can go free, and which they do at the very end of the movie. And the Dinobots come in with Optimus Prime, and they just crush everything, which is what you expect of the Dinobots. Tearing all the Decepticons apart. It was funny when he slashes open the little cell that the Dinobots are in. It was funny because I actually turned to my friend and said, I have been waiting for this for 3 movies. Anybody knows me knows I love dinosaurs, and the Dinobots were far and away my favorite original Transformers. And so to see, to finally see them in a movie, which I've been hoping, I knew they wouldn't be in the first movie, but I was hoping they'd put them in the second movie. It's like, no, not there. Okay, come on, third, but no, come on. So it's like, okay, finally they got the Dinobots in the movie. And they did a good job. Though I still haven't figured out why Swoop has 2 heads. Okay. Anyway, at the end, they basically Optimus sends Locke down to the scrapyard and takes the seed, which everyone was fighting over, and flies off into space. Which, oddly enough, now Optimus Prime can fly on his own without the extra parts. Which is, it's like, okay, he didn't do that at any other point in the movie, except just in the final scene. Takes that and flies out into space with it, basically to keep it away from Earth, so that anyone who might come after it wouldn't hurt anyone. It ends on a note that's obviously I wouldn't call it as sequel begging as some of the ends of the other movies that I've seen this summer, but it's up there. It's obviously wanting another movie, and again, this was supposed to be basically a beginning of another trilogy. You had the first trilogy. This is going to be like a second trilogy. So, take that for what you will, like it or hate it, it doesn't matter. And when, one thing that I really liked about this movie is that Optimus Prime really has his own personal arc. This one actually felt a little bit more about him than any of the previous movies, even though obviously he was in the previous movies and one of the main characters. Here, because at the beginning of the movie the Autobots have been hunted down, he's got a strong distrust of humans, at this point, and it's understandably so. Somebody's hunting you down, you're not exactly going to be, warm to them. Mark Wahlberg, helps him out, restarts him, so to speak, slowly, you can see it's a slow trust building. It's like basically the only reason he helps his family get away from the CIA in the beginning of the movie is because it's like, okay, you restarted me, okay, fine, I owe you. And then there's a couple of times where Optimus almost walks away. It's like, all right, you helped me, I helped you, okay, we're good. That's, like, debt's repaid. Because he doesn't, at this point, he really doesn't have any reason to be loyal to the humans. So, to see his arc towards the end, where he does say, it's finally, it's like, what, we did, we promised to protect them, and It was just overall, I thought this movie was, in my opinion, better than the originals. If you didn't like the first three movies, I'm not going to say this movie's going to convert you. I won't say that. But if you tolerated the first three movies, this one will be okay, I think. So make that of what you will. I really enjoyed it. I thought this was a much better Transformers movie than the first three personally. So, next week I'll be coming back with another arc in the racing movie series. Drift Beauty Battle will be coming up next. A women's racing team, or a girls' racing team. So, a little bit different perspective on the racing than just the guys normally racing. So, until next week, that's my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Speculative Dude, out.